Welcome back to the Pacific Office Automation Postgame Scoreboard Show. Ryan Buckley, Will Ortner, Jordan Schultz here with you. Coming up, we'll hear from Andy Dirt Johnson and Dusty Hara. But right now, what I want to dive into with you, Will, as the Ducks winners today, 49-14, the defensive performance.
Yep.
It seemed that early on, as we referenced with Anthony Newman, there were some drives kept alive that you might have liked to see some stops a little bit earlier on. But what were the adjustments that you saw with them tightening everything up? And overall, how did you evaluate and grade their performance today?
I'm not upset with how the Oregon defense played. I think early on they were a little bit surprised. I think they thought they were going to win more one-on-one matchups with the D-line going up against Oregon State's O-line. I don't want to say that they didn't give them enough credit, but maybe they overinflated what they felt like they could do on that defensive line. Because against Boise State and against Idaho, they really had created havoc, but the strength of that Oregon State offense is going to be on that two-headed running back tandem that they have in the backfield, and then that offensive line, and then whatever McCoy can add when he's added into the +1 run game. And that's really what ate them alive. Like, they forced a 3rd and 15 or whatever it was on the first drive, and Matui Uyunglele just took the wrong route when he came in because he got into the backfield free, and McCoy was able to just kind of flip around and get outside the pocket, and then he ran for the big gain. If Uyunglele high points that and he goes towards the back shoulder of that quarterback, he's there to make a play if he tries to step up, and if he tries to whip around back outside like he did, he runs right into Uyunglele and it's a sack. So I really feel like they just thought that they would win more of their one-on-one matchups early, and they didn't. And so then they made the adjustment to add another player into the box. Once you do that, now the Oregon State double teams in the run game. They can't stay on for as long as they want to. They have to come off. And then that leads to Harmon, that leads to Tuioti, that leads to Uyunglele, that leads to Birch being able to now get off of those blocks quicker. And now they're making that stop for a 2-yard gain instead of a 4-yard gain like they were early on.
Got you. Yeah, because it did feel like you started to get maybe, I don't know if it's fair to say more push from those guys later in the game, and I don't know if it's just the size wearing them down, but one of the other things that I saw, and I know that the national broadcast on television was making a lot of the Bryce Betcher's also a baseball player storyline. They couldn't stop talking about it. This is something we've known for a long time, but I just thought he had one of his best games of the season, or one of the best games that I've seen. And maybe that's, and you can explain a little bit more about why he was freed up to do so, but whether it was somewhere near the sideline, over the middle of the field, whether it was in the backfield, whether it was stopping in run support for somebody else, it just felt like he was around the ball all day. And sure enough, he leads the team in tackles again with 10 today. But whether it was his performance or the guys around him, what did you see that enabled that? I
just felt like early on when they were getting those double teams, what Oregon State was doing was they were making sure they were taking care of the D lineman first. And so Betcher was able to ID, oh, hey, here comes the double team, and then I can get off. And then he was making great one-on-one tackles. Now, the reason why Oregon they're always going to be okay with their middle linebacker making tackles, but the reason why Oregon State was okay with the middle linebacker making tackles is because Betcher is making that tackle at a 3-yard gain. And when you have a running back tandem like they have between Griffin and Hankerson, they're going to fall forward. Well, if on first down you get 3 to 4, and then on second down you get 3 to 4, well, now you have third and manageable. And that's all Oregon State was really trying to do in this game. They wanted to hold on to the football. They wanted to have 6, 7, 8-minute score drives so that they could keep the ball out of Oregon's offense's hands. And so I think early on what they were doing was, we're okay if Bryce Betcher makes these tackles, and Bryce Betcher was making really good plays, because if he doesn't make those tackles, those are now big-time runs.
Yeah.
But Oregon State was going to live with Bryce Betcher having a big game. And so what I think they did is they allowed Tuioti to kind of play more into the box. Like, he was hanging more on the outside and almost acting as like an outside linebacker, D-end, rushing hard off the edge. They move him more into the middle. And then once they did that, now Oregon State has to account for Tuioti more, and they can't sit on those double teams as long. And if you don't sit on a double team on a guy like Derek Harmon, he's going to get off and he's going to start making plays. And that's when you saw Oregon's defensive line starting to get more tackles. And when the D-line's getting more tackles, that's usually only going to be a 2-yard gain, sometimes even a 1 or a tackle for loss. And so that's where you saw the big changes. You are getting bigger stops on first down because you added another into the box. And then Oregon State had to throw, and Oregon State just isn't built to throw like that.
And I guess that brings me to my next question for you, which is, maybe it's hard to say a quiet day for the Oregon secondary, but because Oregon's front seven was able to play so well, Giovanni McCoy still threw the ball 36 times, but like it never really felt
No.
like he had anyone seriously open, any big shots available. It just seemed like a super pedestrian day for their quarterback, and one mostly made difficult by good secondary play.
Right. Well, and like the big plays for Oregon State is Walker catching a halo screen, which is just a simple bubble screen, and then making a guy miss or two.
Yeah, he had about
And
15 of those.
right. And that's why he has 8 catches and he has 11 targets, but they're all for his long on the day is 14 yards. Like you don't see that when you have a wide receiver with 8 catches.
Yeah.
And so I felt like what Oregon did a good job of was knowing, hey, they're eventually going to make a mistake. And so we're going to keep everything in front of us. And as long as we do that, eventually we're going to get a tackle for a loss, or they're going to have a penalty, and then they're going to be behind the sticks, and then they have to try and challenge us in the secondary, and McCoy just isn't a quarterback that's going to beat this Oregon Ducks secondary. So I think that Oregon just kind of played the waiting game and knew that eventually their talent was going to wear down Oregon State, and it did.